Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'm Mrs. Ossorio. I'm the proud principal of Post Road School, and I'm here with Miss Lasser. And we are very, very excited to have this meeting this evening because, as you know, I have reached out to the community last week to share with you that we are at a point right now in our community, in our district, where we are ready to welcome back our children full-time into the school. And that's really amazing. I know we've been waiting for this moment for a very long time. We are practically at the 1-year mark where we actually closed our schools. And that was a really, really daunting time for us. And then we came back hybrid in the fall. And, through each transition, we've had some bumps along the way. And now we're at a stage where we are ready to receive our children in person full time. Okay, just gonna do this again. It's a lot of background noise on my end, sorry. So first things first, I've received lots of questions, and so I wanna give as much information right now. So I want you listening really carefully. What is our timeline? Because people are asking, like, when is this going to happen? I want to know the exact dates. I need it for planning purposes. Yes, I know you need it for planning purposes. But, the reopening committee is meeting this week, and they're the ones who are going to determine the actual timeline for how and when we are going to receive all of the students. What I can say is that we are striving for opening our school full-time to all of our kindergartners. Right now, that's the first goal, to try to get all of our kindergartners in beginning on March 22nd. If we could do that sooner, we certainly would. And so the committee is working really hard to see, maybe we could, I don't know. But if we can't, then we can't either. So either way, the committee is working, and we have a goal for bringing in our kindergarten friends starting on the 22nd. What I do know is that we are projecting that the committee will be able to put out this Friday, which is March 5th, a timeline after that. Like, when can we bring in our first and second graders? When can we bring in grades 3 through 5? The goal is that we want to get the children in by mid-April. Okay, but the exact dates I can't tell you tonight. The reopening committee is working really hard on that this week. And so please stay tuned for that information. The first things first is we still need to maintain some kind of social distance, right? Because we've worked so hard to keep our community safe, to keep our students safe, and to keep our staff safe. And so the CDC guidelines do tell us that what is safe is having the children all of us at minimum 3 to 6 feet apart. Sorry about that, it's background noise. 3 to 6 feet apart. Ideally, we want our students to be 6 feet apart. That's where they are right now. And we're going to continue to do that. And it all depends on the numbers. If the whole class wants to return back full time, then of course we're not going to be able to stay at 6 feet. We are going to have to put the children a little bit closer together. We would go as low as 3 feet. And at that point, we would be using some physical, partitions or barriers to help mitigate any kind of spread of the virus. We are going to continue to employ all of the safety protocols that we have been using up to this point. What I'm talking about are those hand washing protocols when the children arrive to school, before and after they leave their classroom, in the lunchroom, when they take off their mask and put it back on, we're washing their hands. When they're coming in from recess, we're washing their hands. So we're going to continue with those protocols. We're going to continue with, walking with distance in the hallways. It might look different now. If there are more children in a class, we've usually had one really long line. It might mean that we have 2 lines instead, so that the line is not snaking around the hall so far away. So we're going to have to make some of these changes. But what I do want to share with you is that we are trying to stick to the 6 feet. That's ideal. But if the numbers in a particular class go beyond and we have to have the children a little bit closer, we will use partitions or barriers to mitigate the spread of the virus. There was a question about what the classroom setup is like. And at this stage, all of our students pretty much have their own desk. And I'm hoping to receive more desks. If I don't, we will be using some of the tables that we have in the school again. So we want to use the desks. That's ideal. And if we have to use tables also because of the increase in number of the classrooms, we will do that. Again, we will be using the physical partitions that I mentioned before. Okay, I'm trying to just get to your questions. So a big question is like, how many kids are going to be in the classroom, right? And it's kind of hard to tell. I won't know until you answer the survey, right? So I know we're kind of stuck in this world of like, I need the information in order to answer the survey. And we need you to make a decision so that we can make some preparations in the classroom. So, you know, that's where that is. So if you can please answer the survey, that survey is due on Wednesday. That will help us to get a clearer picture of how many children are in the classroom. If some parents decide, you know, if you're full remote or you're staying remote, then our data will be what the data is on that particular day until, you know, parents decide otherwise, that they are changing their mind because they're feeling safer and want their children to come into the school. What are some of the changes that are going to take place when it comes to arrival and dismissal? So that's a big question that some, you know, parents have been asking. And you know, in terms of arrival, we're going to continue with the same procedures. You know, we have the car drop off in the back. We have children arriving by bus. We have our walkers who are coming in either through the front of the school or the back of the school. We're going to continue with those procedures. We're going to continue with taking temperatures when children are coming into the school. Again, one of those safety protocols that we're trying that we employ to just see if we can catch a student if they are coming into school sick. And in terms of dismissal, well, we anticipate, it all depends on what parents are choosing in terms of their mode of transportation, right? So as more and more families decide that their children are coming back to school, if they're taking the bus, well, then the bus ridership will increase. At this point, my understanding is that the buses can have up to 24 children on it. As more children ride the bus, we would have siblings or members of one family household sit together so that we can fit a few more children on the bus. Many families are opting to pick up their children by car or also as walker pickup. We encourage you to do that if you would like. The biggest change is going to be at car drop-off and car pickup because that volume increases. So the cooperation I would need from the community is for you to try to wait patiently on the other side of Soundview where the stop sign is, that goes on the other side of Prospect, and make a line, and we would guide you in so that we can allow traffic in the community to continue to flow. That is the biggest way that you can help us. And that's where, if we want to keep the car pickup, let me get those thumbs up if you're loving car pickup. If you're loving car pickup, we got to work together to maintain it. So that's where the biggest change is going to be, I think, in terms of car drop off and car pickup. We just have to be really safe and we have to be really patient. And today I saw, you know, we had a situation where someone, you know, was, I guess, running late for work and, you know, made a dangerous move in the parking lot and made a left and just got out and brought their child in and didn't follow our protocol. And that was not really safe. And the thing is, this is what we have to do. We're living in a really different time. So we have to slow down. It's going to take us longer to do things. And so with the anticipation of having more children coming in, things are going to slow down again, all over again, like they were in September, because we take that safety very seriously. And so it means that we have to slow down to reteach. We have a number of children who are coming back to school who have been full remote since all year. This last week and this week, we had new students come in for the very, very first time. Very, very exciting. but we have to teach them. And now at the prospect of having potentially an entire class come in, I want you to think about this. These kiddos haven't been together. They kind of been together, right, in two different worlds. Half of them have been on the camera, right, and Zoom, and the other half have been in the classroom. But now they're all going to be in the same space. And I want you to imagine where the position our teachers are in now, right? Because now they have to think about that whole social dynamic, right? Oh, where am I going to seat these kiddos? Oh, they're not really getting along so well. That happens in a community. The whole behavior management, the classroom management is what's going to be key right now, and building that community again of everyone in person all over again. We're going to slow down a bit. And that's what it's going to take, because that's what comes first. And then we start moving along again. So I want you thinking about some of those dynamics that are going to play out as we have more and more children coming in. And also as we have our full remote students coming in for the very first time, those who are deciding to do that. And it is very exciting. So in terms of lunch and recess, right now we have increased the number of students in school already. So we're talking about, right now we have about 3 students to a table. They are socially distanced, but now if we double that, right, we fill up the cafeteria, we're still gonna follow the same schedule. We're potentially talking about maybe 6 students to a table. So we would need possibly barriers to go across, because that's the time when the children take their masks off and they're eating and they're talking, and sometimes a little spittle might come out. So we want to make sure we have some kind of a barrier, and that would be ideal. So that's something that reopening committee is working on, and we're hoping to have. Other ways that we can still have a lunch program is possibly using alternate locations in our school. And, for example, could we use outdoor spaces? Yes, we could, if the weather permits, right? And we can't always rely on that, but it's a possibility. Could we use the gymnasium as well? Well, yes, we potentially could. We'd need more tables, we'd need more partitions, we'd need more staffing. So these are other resources that we would need in order to possibly use another location in the school. So once we know what all of our resources are, then we will make the best plan, always considering the safety of our students first, and also of our staff. Okay. In terms of, how they're seated, the children will remain with their class just as they always have. When it comes to playing outside, they're going to remain with their class. And that is the difference this year. This year, they were staying together in a cohort. Now, potentially, the cohorts will combine. It will just be the class. So the children are not allowed to combine with other classes at this time. But we're still going to have a time for them to play outside. They will have an area that they will go to play. And we will continue to have the rotation schedule where, maybe this week, Miss McMath's class plays on the little playground. And then next week, they'll get to play on the blacktop. And the following week, they'll get a spot on the field. So that sort of thing. Okay. I think a big question is, about remote, because there are a number of families who have chosen the full remote option for important reasons, and each family has a different reason why they've chosen to be full remote. I think we all would love to have our kids in school, and so we have to respect that there are some very nuanced and personal decisions that some families have to make that some of us may not understand. I have a lot of insight into some of those reasons, and I certainly understand and respect them. So I understand that those families who really may not have a choice but to have their children remote are concerned about what might happen to the remote program. Is it going to change? And so, the easy answer is like, no, I don't want it to change. But, it could possibly change depending on how a particular class, what the numbers are in each class. So, from class to class, based on the numbers, there may be an adjustment. Like, give me an example. What could that adjustment be? Well, if I have a teacher who has 20 kids in the class, and 19 of them are, and actually we already have the scenario right now. because parents have answered the survey or have given the information to their classroom teachers, and there's only one student in the whole class that is remote. And that's a tough decision. It's a tough situation for the classroom teacher as well. But we are going to do our very, very best to deliver a robust program, a robust instructional experience for those children who are at home as well. Okay. I want our families who do have full, who've chosen full remote, just to have some understanding of what's happening on the flip side here. There may possibly be an entire class that's present. And so the dynamics of the class does change. It really does. When you have all of the children present, now you cannot, the teacher cannot stay at her desk. She can't. She's got to get up. He or she has to get up and walk around and be physically present and watching and engaging with the children in a very different way. Okay. So, we're going to go through a little bit of growing pains and some transition when that occurs. Okay. But what I can say to you is that, our teachers are committed to delivering the best program that they possibly can to all of their students. They care about each and every one of the children in the classroom. On that same note, I am getting an overwhelming response from parents where they are choosing to have their children come in full time. We do know that we can't abandon the online platforms completely. We just can't, because we just don't know what's going to happen in terms of, what if I have to quarantine a class? What if the whole school has to quarantine for some reason? It's happened in the past, right? Then we have to be able to pivot and make a shift and go to the remote experience. So we cannot abandon those things completely, okay? So, we're going to do our very best to continue to use the platforms when and where appropriate. A question was, well, when my child's in school in person, are they still going to have to use the iPad? Sometimes they will. It's the teacher's preference not to. They don't want to use the iPad all day. But if half the class is home and the other half is in school, how do we bridge that community, right? We have to be able to have that connection. Now things are changing, quite possibly. I had a few teachers tell me, oh, my kids are coming except for one or maybe two. So I anticipate there's not going to be, the children in school are not going to use their iPads as much. I really don't. I think that they're going to be back to that paper and pencil, which is what we want to see. We want to see the authentic work and seeing what they're producing. So I do anticipate that we will be using the platforms or the the actual technological device less as the more and more children are coming into the school and while children are in school. I do want to talk about specials because there were some questions like, will the specials program continue? And at this juncture, we are continuing with the same, the same schedule and the same rotation. So we're continuing with that. And, will the children be able to go to their specials? It depends on the number of students that are in full time. That's what it's going to depend on. And whether, what the space requirements, availability is in those specials classrooms. Okay, so it could be fluid. It could be one second grade class can go to art because they have a small enough number that fits the children, that fits the number of spaces that are available in the art room, where another one may have all 21 kids in and they're not fitting in a way that's socially distanced. That special area teacher would then have to push into the classroom, but nevertheless, the children would still have their specials program, okay? So I want to make that clear that the children are not going to lose their specials program. There were some questions about, PE. It's very possible that PE might be held outside. Would be lovely anyway. They'd love to have the kids outside in the fresh air. So as much as possible, we would love to utilize outdoor spaces, weather permitting. It could be that we'd have a combination of one class in the gymnasium and one class outside. There's going to be different combinations, and all of that is dependent upon the data that we receive, which is why it's so important that we hear from everyone regarding their decision. There were also questions about like band and orchestra. And right now, we are not able to have the entire band and orchestra meet together. The children do meet for lessons in school. And so I'm sure we'll be able to continue to do that. Um, but right now, as I understand it, the band and orchestra meets virtually. And I don't anticipate there'll be a change, but we're living in, in an ever-changing environment. So don't quote me on that. Perhaps it will change moving forward. We would love for it to have all of the children play together. But as you know, when it comes to the band instruments, they have to blow into them, and there has to be at least 12 feet distance. And, if we cannot provide that kind of distance, then we're not going to compromise the children's safety. Okay. There were lots of questions that were just health related, kind of general questions, asking about the vaccination status of our staff. And what I will share with you is that any staff member who was able to be vaccinated and wished to be vaccinated has been vaccinated. Anyone who could secure an appointment that wanted to and could has. Do I have actual numbers for you? No, I do not. Um, and in terms of testing, I will share that we have started doing voluntary testing already in our schools, even before, being required to do so. I'm really proud to share that at Post Road, 85% of our staff did consent to testing. So I think we actually had the highest number in the district. I'm very proud of that. And we had a number of staff members voluntarily test about a month ago. So, certainly there is a willingness on the part of our community to do this kind of thing if it means it's going to keep us all safe. And I'm very proud of my staff for that. In terms of, there's been a question, does my child have to participate in testing? And your child does not have to participate in testing. We do encourage you to, if you've given consent, to participate, because, the more people that we have testing in our community, we can keep ourselves more safe and keep our school open. So I want to encourage you to do that if you can, but certainly no child will be tested without your permission. I want to be really clear. Okay, so if we don't have consent, we are not going to test your child. Okay, but we certainly encourage you to be a part of the testing program so that we can, learn early on if there are any positive cases. Will we follow the same protocols if there is a positive case in our community? Absolutely. I will continue to be transparent with you when we do have positive cases. If we have to quarantine a class because there's exposure or what have you, absolutely, we're going to continue to do that because that is the right thing to do, and that's what's going to keep us safe. Whatever the contact tracing information tells us, that's what we're going to do. And we'll continue to follow all of those guidelines, that are provided to us by the Department of Health, and also working in conjunction with our nurse health coordinator for the district. And then just one more thing around safety that there was a question around, and in terms of like the use of shared materials, and in general in the classrooms and in our school, most of the children do have their own materials at this point. Whether I know many of you have come to pick up individual packets of math manipulatives, the children have their own book baggies. I know the children have their own pencil boxes or materials with their crayons and pencils, and we'll continue to do that. When children are borrowing books, they are borrowing books and they can use books in their classroom library, but we do ask the teachers, can you sit them out for a little bit just to be safe? Although, even though we have lots of new information that the virus really isn't spreading in that format, it's mostly more through aerosols. We are letting children hold books, and they should hold books. It's very important. We can't do everything on an iPad. They need to turn the pages and feel what real books feel like. We will continue to do that. When children are touching things, for example, if they are touching, books or what have you in the classroom, or even recess equipment, what we do and how we mitigate is that we have the children washing their hands before and after. So, when the children eat in the lunchroom, when they're done and they put their mask on, we sanitize their hands. So now they're clean to go outside. Now they may touch some equipment. They may throw a ball to a friend, or, hold a jump rope or hold a hula hoop. When they're done at recess, they're sanitizing their hands again. What we have to teach our kiddos is, and they're doing this already in terms of keeping their masks on, is keeping their hands away from their face. And we are certainly reminding them, but moms and dads, we need you to do the same thing. Okay. And then there's one last question I will share with you, and then Ms. Lasser, you'll help me go into the chat and answer any questions there. And that was around assessments. Assessments I need to share with you is something that is ongoing, right? So our teachers are constantly checking in with our children. Assessments take on different forms, right? So sometimes it's having a conference with your child and listening to them reading. Well, the teacher's assessing your child at that moment while they step away from the rest of the students to do that. They're gauging and seeing how your child is coming along. They're gathering that qualitative assessment, and sometimes they're engaging in collecting assessments that are more quantitative, but we've got to know how the kiddos are doing, right? And they're going to do that periodically and ongoing. Are we going to have state tests? So it looks like that's what the state is moving toward. And we're going to respond to whatever the state tells us. If we have to administer a state test, we will administer it. But the tests that are really important to us are the ones where we're checking in on how your kiddos are doing when it comes to the reading and when it comes to math. We're diagnosing as we go along and responding and giving the instruction that they need at that moment. So are we going to not spend any time testing? That would not be accurate. We have to check in and see how the kiddos are doing so that we can respond and target the instruction appropriately. Okay. And right now we just came off of an assessment period, and that was back in January. So we're good right now. And we, like I said, teachers are taking the pulse all the time. And the next time they will engage in these final kind of benchmark assessments would be very close to the end of the school year, which would be like last couple of weeks of May and June. Okay. So let's see in terms of questions we might have. Oh, goodness. Okay. So Ms. Lasser, thank you. Let's.
Yeah. So some of them you answered as we were going along, Mrs. Ossorio.
Sure.
Especially the first one about allowing K to come back and know the grade, right? So we're starting with that as part of the phase-in.
Right.
And there's a question, the kindergartners won't be split into two groups, right? When we talk about bringing back K, we're talking about bringing back the entire grade.
We're talking about for the entire school, the children are going into their classrooms. They're not going to have half the class at one location and half in the other, because that would just be replicating what we have right now, right? If we had half the kids in another room zooming into their classroom, that's the same thing we have right now when they're at home. The only difference is that they would just be physically located closer to their classroom. So the children are we're welcoming them into their classroom with their teachers. The only difference will be that we're going to have the barriers or the partitions so that they can all fit in the same classroom. And we're phasing in. We're going slowly because we want to do it well. We want to do it safe. I think I already shared about busing. So we're going to be at 24. And that's something really you should listen in on the reopening committee, because these meetings are recorded and then posted, and they may be addressing a particular question here, for example, about the busing situation. So I know we certainly have gotten a little bit of information about how they're going to seat families together. They may have to increase and have more buses on a run. That's possible. And if you have any concerns, we certainly encourage you to, use the car pickup and drop off.
Yeah,
We cannot change the drop off time to 8:15. I'm so sorry. We just don't have the staffing to start any sooner than that. So the building will open at 8:30 and that's when everyone is reporting. Go ahead, Ms. Lasser.
I was just going to say also there was a question further down, Mrs. Ossorio, about transportation.
Yes.
And yes, you may choose to enroll your child to ride the bus at a later point. That's something you can work out with Mr. Alfonso.
Yes.
That is not something that, you know, is fixed as of right now. You can be flexible with that in the event you need to.
Right. There's a good point here. Mr. Robinson is sharing about having personnel to put at the top of. So we started that way. And we did have, you know, our security assistant over at the stop sign, but then there really wasn't a need for it anymore. Once we got the flow, there just wasn't that much traffic that it was impacting. That might change now, and we're certainly prepared for that. We're actually even looking at a faster way to get the kids outside. So we're exploring some computerized options to collect how you're waiting outside in your car so we can get the kids out sooner to you. The instrumental program is the same. I'm trying to see if there's anything here that we haven't answered. I see we've answered a lot of these questions.
There was a question regarding the extended day program, the after school program, and as of right now, that is not set to reopen in the building.
Do you mean aftercare like that?
Yes.
Yeah, no,
correct.
That's not in place yet. Yes, that question was answered. How do we reactivate the temperature app? I don't know.
You can just you can delete the app and then reinstall it.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm still doing it the old-fashioned way, which is why I don't know the answer to that one. What kind of test do you have for the kids for SAR? I think we're using that Binex one, the one that the district showed on the district website. There's a whole video on the test that we use, the rapid test that we use here in the district. So the question here is, are Wednesdays still half days? And that's something that will be discussed at the reopening committee. So please be listening for that. And again, I think that meeting, is that on Wednesday, Ms. Lasser?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. The rapid test is it a rapid, no, this is a rapid test or the PCR test. So the ones that we give is the rapid test. Okay. All right, so I feel like we've answered most of the questions, but if there's a question that we haven't answered, certainly feel like you can open up your line. How about? That's, yeah. Mrs. Freeberg, I'll talk to you privately about that. Thank you for thinking of that. And I know why you're thinking of that. She's so lovely. Okay. I'm gonna stop recording because it doesn't feel like a presentation anymore at this point. And then we'll just, if anybody else has any more questions before we close out for the next